got you.
And we're here.
Live from the Liar's Lair, it is the Disinformed podcast. I'm Shane.
I'm John.
And I'm Michael.
We are so happy to have you here, ladies and germaphobes. It is going to be a very entertaining show. Guaranteed. I can't guarantee anything. But we are going to be... We're going to be discussing the Stanford prison experiment. So, obviously, we're going to be full of just lighthearted chuckles and glee today.
My wife has already turned the episode off because she was not accepted to Stanford.
Oh.
And she is very upset.
Well, I mean, she should be.
Ooh. I don't even know what that is.
Stanford?
What's a stand for?
I don't even know, and I agree with you.
I don't stand for that.
What do you stand for?
What's your stand for?
Would that pun count towards your pun limit that you had set?
It would. I'm gonna go kill myself now. I was trying just to really cut the middleman out of this one.
You still have a half pun. We still have a half
welcome
pun left before John throws himself off the roof.
So welcome to the new Disinformed with just Shane and myself.
Yes. It'll, you know...
Insert the splat.
Insert the goop. Actually, you get the splat from the goop, from what I understand. All over your face, neck, and chest.
I refer to it as the rejuvenating waters.
Do you know if you used some crystallography with that as well, you can help to bring your chi and your aura up? John's trying to fit his foot in my pants.
It'll fit.
With that attitude.
John's giving me a foot job. His feet are unemployed at the present.
I'll send feet pics to anybody that wants to see disgusting feet.
Yeah, he doesn't trim his toenails.
What do you charge? Might as well set it up front.
Be like 5 cents and a Charms blow pop.
I thought you were...
Wait, you'll send an actual Charms blow pop to people?
No, I want a Charms blow pop.
Okay.
Oh, man. I thought you were saying you'd do it for food stamps. You couldn't live on the goop diet,
Well,
though.
for food stamps, I'd
Goop to goop diet.
He'll give some
I'd
ankle
write you a poem for food stamps.
I would staple my hands together.
I'd eat the money. That's what I would do.
Yes.
I would eat the money.
Well, considering that it's food stamps, they're not money, so...
Listen, don't bring your science-y things into
Also,
this.
the United States Postal Service will not accept those. I've been trying to mail stuff off for years to try to get the foods back, and I can't.
And what's the deal with forever stamps?
If the cockroaches are gone, who's going to be mailing letters? So, the Stanford prison experiment. It was a social psychology experiment that attempted to investigate the psychological effects of perceived power, focusing on the struggle between prisoners and prison officers. It was conducted at... Conducted? Here's my first stroke of the episode.
Air conductor.
I got it
Conductor.
It was conducted at Becky's favorite, Stanford University, between August 14th and August the 20th, 1971, by a research group led by psychology professor Philip Zimbardo.
Sounds like an asshole.
He's a provocative dance. I did the Zimbardo. He used college students, and by that I don't mean that he fucked them and stopped calling them afterwards. In the study, volunteers were randomly assigned to be either guards or prisoners in a mock prison, with Zimbardo himself serving as the superintendent and master of ceremonies. Several prisoners left mid-experiment, and the whole experiment was abandoned after 6 days, which shows just how well they were doing. Early reports on experimental results claimed that students quickly embraced their assigned roles, with some guards enforcing authoritarian measures and ultimately subjecting some prisoners to physical and psychological torture, while many prisoners passively accepted psychological abuse and, by the officer's request, actively harassed other prisoners who tried to stop it. The experiment has been described in many introductory social psychology textbooks, although some have chosen to exclude it because its methodology is sometimes questioned. No fucking shit. So, some of the experiment's findings have been called into question, and the experiment has been criticized for unscientific methodology and possible fraud. Critics have noted Zimbardo instructed the guards to exert psychological control over the prisoners. Critics also noted that some of the participants behaved in a way that would help the study, so that, as the Guard later put it, the researchers would have something to work with. This is known as demand characteristics.
So rigged.
Essentially, is that you are you're kind of planting the seed in the person's mind of this is what I'm hoping that you get for us.
We're gonna put these fucking nerds as the prisoners, and we're gonna make you god of the nerds, and you can finally fuck with them.
Do whatever you want. Just, make sure that you cripple all of their whims.
Right.
And, The variants of the experiment have been performed by other researchers, but none of these attempts have replicated the results of the SPE. So, questions about that before we get going?
No, it all seems pretty reasonable to me.
That was the clarification that I needed. Essentially, just...
Okay, cool. So that gives you kind of the basis and the background here. So the goals. The archived official website of the Stanford prison experiment, God, I hope it's archived, it's from 71, describes the experimental goals as follows. We wanted to see what the psychological effects were of becoming a prisoner or a prison guard. To do this, we decided to set up a simulated prison and then carefully note the effects of the institution on the behavior of all those within its walls. A 1997 article from the Stanford news service described experiment goals in a more detailed way. Zimbardo's primary reason for conducting the experiment was to focus on the power of roles, rules, symbols, group identity, and situational validation of behavior that generally would repulse ordinary individuals. I had been conducting research for some years on de-individualization, vandalism, and dehumanization that illustrated the ease with which ordinary people could be led to engage in antisocial acts by putting them in situations where they felt anonymous, or they could perceive of others in ways that made them less than human, as enemies or objects. So Mr. Zimbardo is essentially telling us he is an employer of the mystery method.
So Zimbardo is a beta male cuck.
Beta male cuck. Beta male cuck. They have their own theme song now. It's like a 70s TV show. The beta male cucks.
So he's a piece of shit.
Well, we all, particularly in the 70s, think of like the context of the time. Everyone was resistant to authority, so this idea that somehow authority can subvert someone's normal functionality. Looking back at the Germans from World War II and some of the experimentation led to it, it's interesting concepts to get into. So, I can understand his rationale.
Right.
Now, the experiment proper. Male participants were recruited and told that they would participate in a 2-week prison simulation. Oral sex not required.
Aww.
Anal sex is required.
Bullshit.
There need to be soap.
And there will be no ropes involved.
Sorry, I literally had the worst stroke there. There is soap.
Well, if you
Unless
use soap,
you're throwing rope.
Oh my god.
I'm just recalling my time in prison.
Yes, well, aren't we all? The team selected the 24 applicants whose test results predicted they would be the most psychologically stable and healthy. Obviously, that was not a very stringent test.
It's probably just a question like, do you feel psychologically stable today?
Are you psychologically stable?
Of course!
Have you killed anyone? Yes? Okay.
It's on a scale from 1 to 5. Have you killed anyone?
On a scale of have you killed someone today, 1 to 5.
Disagree,
3.
but not strongly disagree.
2.
Well, I roasted this nerd pretty hard. Does that count as killing them?
I never saw him again.
So the team selected
Goddamn, nope.
The team selected the 24 applicants whose test results predicted they would be the most psychologically stable and healthy. These participants were predominantly white and of the middle class. The group was intentionally selected to exclude African Americans, individuals with criminal backgrounds, psychological impairments, or medical problems. They all agreed to participate in a 7 to 14-day period and received $15 per day, roughly the equivalent of $94 per day in 2018 monies. By the way, I will mention, all of this is directly pulled from Wikipedia. If you're playing the home game you want to follow along, I probably should have thrown that out in advance, but none of this has been really dramatically tweaked. I was just kind of cherry-picking from this to make it go faster, because dear lord, this is a dense topic. And you're dense if you want to take part in it, apparently.
Yeah.
And the experiment was conducted in a 35-foot section of a basement of Jordan Hall, Stanford's psychology building. The prison had 2 fabricated walls, one at the entrance and one at the cell block wall to block observation. Each cell, which was 6 by 9 feet or, I'm not going to get into meters. Psh.
What is this?
What's a meter?
We only use freedom units here.
A meter is what you have to do before you...
Well, I think you're going to add a little hoo-hoo.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, content warning that.
Yes,
yeah.
that's definitely doing that. Man, I am... Okay, starting over. Each cell, 6 by 9 feet, contained only a cot for the prisoners. In contrast, the guards lived in a very different environment, separated from the prisoners. They were given rest and relaxation areas and other comforts. Which presumably means blowjobs from the prisoners.
Blowjobs and anal.
Yeah, anal. 12 of the 24 participants were assigned the role of prisoner, 9 plus 3 substitutes, while the other 12 were assigned the role of guard, also 9 plus 3 potential substitutes. Zimbardo took on the role of superintendent, and an undergrad research assistant took on the role of the warden. The researchers held an orientation session for the guards the day before the experiment.
Now I'm just picturing some prisoner is getting beat, and he's like, wait, hold on, I need a substitute for this. Everyone times out, like, their batons raised, and, like, one is poised to, like...
Smacks him on the ass.
Yeah.
Takes his place.
I'm not going to take this anymore.
Tag out!
Now, if the substitute is like, you are done. You are officially tapped. They are sending you home. Here comes someone else. So it's like a jury, basically, is they have a substitute to make sure that you are totally done. So if only you could tap out when it's time for the blowjobs, kid. I'm having Jerry do
I
it.
always miss the blowjobs.
Oh man.
I'm sorry, only winners get to be blown.
Winning. The researchers held an orientation session for the guards the day before the experiment, during which the guards were instructed to attempt to avoid harming the prisoners physically, and that they could not withhold food or drink. Now, that's just attempt to avoid harming them.
At best, try not.
Try not to break their jaw whilst you are forcing your cock in their mouth.
That's the Patton Oswalt sky cake.
Sky cake.
If you would kindly please try to not attempt to maybe not really actually hit someone in a way that might be considered painful, that would be great.
This is from a university faculty, so they're saying, while you're attempting to force fellatio, please keep it gentle.
I think there's a Michael Scott quote for this. Don't do anything. Let's see. There's a rule.
This better be a real big cracker that you're throwing out here.
David, here it is. My philosophy is basically this, and this is something that I live by, and I always have, and I always will. Don't ever, for any reason, do anything to anyone for any reason ever. No matter what, no matter where, or who you're with, or where you're going, or where you've been ever, for any reason whatsoever.
So sex is never happening with Michael Scott. Good. The researchers provided the guards with wooden batons to establish their status.
Jeez. Dominance.
Now, if you tell me that that isn't something that's intended to be
thrust upon.
He threw his fists up.
Yes, we want it. It's phallic, is what I'm driving at here.
Rock fist.
The wooden batons. To establish their status, clothing similar to that of an actual prison guard, khaki shirt and pants from a local military surplus store, and mirrored sunglasses to prevent eye contact during the analingus. Prisoners wore uncomfortable, ill-fitting smocks and stocking caps, as well as a chain around one ankle. Guards were instructed to call prisoners by their assigned numbers, sewn on their uniforms, instead of by name. The prisoners were arrested at their homes and charged with armed robbery. The local Palo Alto Police Department assisted Zimbardo with the simulated arrests and conducted full booking procedures of the prisoners, which included fingerprinting and taking mud shots. And finger banging. The prisoners were transported to the mock prison from the police station, where they were strip searched and given their new identities.
Is it bullshit that actually happened? That they were processed.
They were all processed. That is absolutely true.
To their homes and the whole nine?
Yep, to their homes. They actually arrested them at home, brought them in, and made it feel like
was
this
it random?
No. This
or
is
like, did they know that it was going to happen, or they were like, okay, you're signed up now.
Essentially,
see you when we see you.
Basically, I think is the implication was.
I would hope so. Not like that's how you found out you were a prisoner. It's like, oh yeah, I can't wait to start this. Police, open up! Like,
armed robbery.
Yeah.
3 small mock prison cells were set up to hold 3 prisoners each. There was a small corridor for the prison yard, a closet for solitary confinement, and a bigger room across from the prisoners for the guards and warden. The prisoners were to stay in their cells and the yard all day and night until the end of the study. The guards worked in teams of 3 for 8-hour shifts. The guards were not required to stay on site after their shift. The results. Guards had differing responses to their new roles. Understatement of the fucking century. One, described by the Stanford magazine as the most abusive guard, which he got an award for apparently, felt his aggressive behavior was helping experimenters to get what they wanted. Another, who joined the experiment hoping to be selected as a prisoner...
Wait.
Don't kink shame him. Don't kink shame.
Oh, please beat me, Daddy. Instead, recalls, I brought joints with me, and every day I wanted to give them to the prisoners. I looked at their faces and saw how they were getting dispirited, and I felt sorry for them. Warden David Jaffe intervened to change this guard's behavior, encouraging him to participate more and become more tough.
Listen, it's fine if you give them joints, but what I want you to do is I want you to dip them in their anuses first.
Make them pick it up with their butthole.
And then they can smoke the joint. That's what I'm telling you to do.
After a relatively uneventful first day, on the second day, the prisoners in Cell 1 blockaded their cell door with their beds and took off their stocking caps. Oh no.
Revolt.
They dashed to the chimney to see what was aflutter. God. Refusing to come out or follow the guards' instructions. Like you do. Guards from the other shifts volunteered to work extra hours to assist in subduing the revolt, and subsequently attacked the prisoners with fire extinguishers without being supervised by the research staff.
I'm gonna call BS. I don't think that happened on the second day. I can't imagine it being that dire that quickly if nothing happened on the first.
Yep. Wrong. Absolutely happened on the second day.
What?
They were spraying them with fire extinguishers on the second day. Now, I don't know whether or not... Now, again, there's arguments to the veracity of whether or not they were telling everybody, to do this. But under the same principle of, let's give them something to work with, I'm sure the prisoners amongst themselves are like, we're going to riot. We're just going to put our beds up in front. We're going to tell them, no, fuck you, I'm not coming out. I'm just going to hang out here all day. And the guards decided, well, if we're prison guards and this is how we're, subduing this, what do? Fire extinguisher the fuckers. I'm being really heavy with the F word here. It's just, it occurs to me that this is how I'm attempting to inject levity.
Fun?
Fun and fondling. Those are the F words
I'm definitely not
today.
censoring
For the last
that.
funning time.
For the last father-fucking time, guards from other shifts had volunteered, as I said. So finding that handling 9 cellmates with only 3 guards per shift was challenging, one of the guards suggested they use psychological tactics to control them. They set up a privilege cell, in which the prisoners who were not involved in the riot were treated with special rewards, such as higher quality.
Named Chad got to stay in the privilege chamber.
Naturally. And they got higher quality meals. The privileged inmates chose not to eat the meal in commiseration with their fellow prisoners. So, right on for solidarity. It's no,
damn,
I'm not eating this pot pie.
United we stand.
Pie. After only 35 hours, one prisoner began to act crazy. As Zimbardo described, number 8612 then began to act crazy, to scream, to curse, to go into a rage that seemed out of control.
Was he singing, fuck you, I won't do what you tell me?
No.
And playing guitar really
He was singing,
loud.
does that make me crazy? It took quite a while before we became convinced that he was really suffering, and that we had to release him. Guards forced the prisoner to repeat... I'm sorry, go.
Oh, saying so he essentially out-crazied the crazy and got out? Is that what you're saying?
Essentially, he was flying into a rage, screaming, cursing like he was losing his composure, obviously. And it took them that long, 35 hours, before they're like, we probably should let him go.
Maybe he's on to something.
I think he's tapping out. Greg? I think he's tapping out. He's blue in the face. Yeah.
He should have learned something from Mandy Moore. He should have just regulated his breathing. Jeez. Oh, I love the callbacks.
Well, I learned it at the base camp, because at the base camp, that's when you have to breathe the most.
By that base, you mean the base of their dick. Guards forced the prisoners to repeat their assigned numbers to reinforce the idea that this was their new identity. So dehumanization's always a good idea. Guards soon used these prisoner counts to harass the prisoners, using physical punishment such as protracted exercise for errors in the prisoner count. If you don't know your number, if your name isn't Jimmy, if you say you're Kunta Kinte, we're going to line you up on the wall for another 45 minutes. Sanitary conditions declined rapidly, exacerbated by the guards... Oh, I love that word, exacerbated. By the guards' refusal to allow some prisoners to urinate or defecate anywhere but a bucket placed in their cell. As punishment, the guards would not let the prisoners empty the sanitation bucket. Mattresses were a valued item in the prison, so the guards would punish prisoners by removing their mattresses, leaving them to sleep on concrete. Some prisoners were forced to be naked as a method of degradation. Several guards became increasingly cruel as the experiment continued. Experimenters reported that approximately 1/3 of the guards exhibited genuine sadistic tendencies. Most of the guards were upset when the experiment was halted after only 6 days.
Aw, man.
I don't get to beat people anymore. Aww.
I cleared my whole schedule out to the end of that last week. What am I going to do now?
You will respect my authority.
Zimbardo argued that the prisoners had internalized their roles, since some had stated that they would accept parole, even if it would mean forfeiting their pay. Despite the fact that quitting would have achieved the same result without the delay involved in waiting for their parole requests to be granted or denied. So rather than saying, I tap out, this is bullshit, I'm gonna leave, I would like to apply for parole.
That's bullshit.
Yeah, I'm gonna say that.
Totally real.
Oh, Christ.
That we are at number 17 for references, by the way, for those following along on Wikipedia. Zimbardo argued they had no reason for continued participation in the experiment after having lost all the monetary compensation, and yet they did because they had internalized the prisoner identity. Prisoner number 416, a newly admitted standby prisoner, after the one person lost their mind, was brought in and expressed concern about the treatment of the other prisoners. When the guards responded with more abuse. When he refused to eat his sausages... Euphemism, I think so. Saying he was on a hunger strike, the guards confined him to solitary confinement, which, for the record, if all of you remember, is a dark closet.
Yeah.
The guards then instructed the other prisoners to repeatedly punch on the door while shouting at 416. The guards said he would be released from solitary confinement only if the prisoners gave up their blankets and slept on their bare mattresses, which all but one refused to do. So wouldn't you love to be Jimmy like, I'm not giving up my blanket.
Fuck you, man.
That idiot opened his mouth. He should have known.
Never did give him that blanket, though.
Not once. At one point, number 416 was hit in the kneecap with a wooden baton during his transfer back into general population to ensure his future compliance with the requests of the guards. This was justified in later discussion by one of the guards who indicated he simply wanted to give the researchers something to work with. In 2018, digitized recordings available on the official SPE website were widely discussed, particularly one where prison warden David Jaffe tried to influence the behavior of one of the guards to encourage him to participate more and be more tough for the benefit of the experiment. This is, of course, the guy who was attempting to hand the, Mary Jane to everybody. In his 2018 response, Zimbardo wrote the instructions they gave to the guards were mild compared to the pressure exerted by actual wardens and superior officers in real-life prison and military settings, where guards failing to participate fully can face disciplinary hearings, demotion, or dismissal. It is believed that Jaffe's encouragement led to the physical assaults perpetuated on inmate number 416. Zimbardo had instructed guards before the experiment to disrespect the prisoners in various ways. For example, they had to refer to the prisoners by number rather than name. This, according to Zimbardo, was intentionally intended to diminish their individuality. With no control, prisoners learned they had little effect on what happened to them, ultimately causing them to stop responding and give up. Quick to realize that the guards were the highest in the hierarchy, prisoners began to accept their roles as less important human beings. Oh my.
Jesus.
The guards would become so deeply absorbed in their roles that they would emotionally, physically, and mentally humiliate the prisoners. From the website, the Stanford Prison Experiment, the authors had to explain how the prisoners were humiliated, and they wrote, each prisoner was systematically searched and stripped naked. He was then deloused with a spray to convey our belief that he may have germs or lice. Real male prisoners don't wear dresses, but real male prisoners do feel humiliated and do feel emasculated. Our goal was to produce similar effects quickly by putting men in a dress without any underclothes. Indeed, as soon as some of our prisoners were put in these uniforms, they began to walk and to sit differently, to hold themselves differently, more like a woman than a man. Welcome to the 1970s, ladies and germs.
I want to call bullshit on... You know what? Fuck it. I'm going to call bullshit.
Okay. No, that is
Damn it.
absolutely truthful.
I just want some glimmer of hope in this.
Isn't this rough? Like,
I need more beer.
We'll delouse you, we'll strip you naked, and then we're going to put you in a dress. And these people are still taking part in this for $15 a day. Rachel Ray spends more than that on food these days for $1 a day. Here, kids.
Well, Gwyneth Paltrow can't even make it 4 days on $29.
No.
Well, I mean, on 94, which is what you said it was in 2018, I mean, that could get you a whole almost 4 weeks.
Yeah. Zimbardo aborted the experiment early when Christina Mauslich, a graduate student in psychology whom he was dating and later married, objected to the conditions of the prison after she was introduced to the experiment to conduct interviews.
When you're trying to slay and you try and brag about what you're doing.
Hey, look, we're making them wear dresses. I am not going to sleep with you until you stop this. Okay, we're stopping the experiment. Zimbardo noted that more than 50 people who had observed the experiment, Mauslich was the only one who questioned its morality. Some of the guards' behavior allegedly led to dangerous and psychologically damaging situations. According to Zimbardo's report, 1/3 of the guards were judged to have exhibited genuine sadistic tendencies. So on and on, you can see this is kind of just reiterating a lot of the same points
just
here.
Just how harrowing everything was.
And after 6 days, they just, void everything out and say, okay, well, that was enough of that. According to Zimbardo's interpretations of the SPE, it demonstrated that simulated prison situation rather than an individual personality traits caused the participants' behavior.
Wait, say that again?
He is saying it demonstrates that the simulated prison situation rather than their individual personality traits led to the participants' behavior. So, because they thought they were in a prison, they started behaving differently. Not we beat them, put them in dresses, and wouldn't let them clean out the bucket that they had to defecate in. No, right. It was they thought they were in a prison.
It's bullshit.
When you cosplay too hard.
The experiment has also been used to illustrate cognitive dissonance theory and the power of authority. Participants' behavior may have been shaped by knowing that they were watched, the Hawthorne effect. Instead of being restrained by fear of an observer, the guards may have behaved more aggressively when superiors observing them did not step in to restrain them. So it's like, well, they didn't have a problem with us spraying them with these fire extinguishers, so let's just beat them with this rod here and see what happens.
Is it actually called the Hawthorne effect? Like, I don't want to call it BS, I just, like...
Yes, it is. The Hawthorne effect is knowing they were being watched.
That is actually a fascinating... I'm just stating for the record that I thought that was very fascinating. Probably from, Hawthorne from Scarlet Letter, right?
I don't know. I can extrapolate. We can click on this.
Or our more culturally appropriate Easy A?
The Hawthorne effect is a type of reactivity in which individuals modify an aspect of their behavior in response to the awareness of being observed. The original research at the Hawthorne Works in Cicero, Illinois, on lighting changes and work structure changes, such as working hours and break times, was originally interpreted by Elton Mayo, etc., etc. So no, it does not refer to Nathaniel.
Damn.
But, good poll.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, because I honestly thought, like, that's kind of like a big deal behind, I think it was Scarlet Letter. Yeah. Huh.
So now we're here. One positive result of the study is that it has altered the way the U.S. prisons are run. For example, juveniles accused...
I'm calling bullshit on that. I'm just going to straight call bullshit on that.
This is according to Wikipedia. They say it has changed the way that the U.S. prisons are run. For example, juveniles accused of federal crimes are no longer housed before trial with adult prisoners due to the risk of violence against them.
Maybe I should have waited for you to finish speaking before I started calling.
You're just riled up.
Yeah.
I am riled.
I'm so riled up.
My heckles are...
Your heckles?
Heckles.
Heckles and jeckles? Hackles.
Hackle. Damn it! Ah!
My heckles are up, though.
My hackles.
Hey, you don't even work.
Don't let me leave without my hackles.
I got my heckles in. Shortly after the study was completed, there were bloody revolts at both the San Quentin and Attica prison facilities, and Zimbardo reported his findings on the experiment to the U.S. House Committee on the Judiciary. So, that is what I have here. I have some other things that will go through as I refer to as the post-lie discussion points. And they'll go into ethical guidelines they established for experiments involving human subjects going forward and things like that if we want to get into it. But otherwise, if this has been far too burdensome and a topic that was not a lot of fun to get into...
I feel like I got bludgeoned with misery.
It's pretty oppressive. It's one of the reasons why I was really fascinated when I looked it up initially, as I could not believe the lengths to which you could dehumanize another person. It's not even like they were being given a wealth of money and told, like, subvert your beliefs. It's just people are generally deplorable to begin with.
Yeah, it definitely just felt like it was like, how much can we get away with?
It's, the absolute
I guess
power.
the answer is 6 days.
Does it specify that it might have been based on, I think it's a Milgram's experiment?
Yes, there is some discussion about the
that?
Milgram stuff. It's not necessarily the two are correlative, Milgram is actually something I have for a possible later episode as well.
Okay, so I don't get my answer now.
But no, we can can
Milgram's?
scrap it. I haven't looked it up. That is the one where essentially I referenced it in the first episode, I think.
Yeah.
Where they had someone who was standing next to a person who was administering electric shocks.
Oh, got
and
it.
through the other side of the wall, essentially, they knew they were shocking someone, and the person there essentially was still saying, even though you heard audible screams from the other side, thrashing and violent reaction, he said, keep pressing the buttons.
Yeah, if they didn't answer a question within a certain time limit and it was incorrect, shock them. If they didn't answer, still shock.
Yep.
No movement, no sound, no whatever, shock.
Right.
So they basically thought they were torturing someone to death and kept doing it because someone in authority told them keep pressing the button.
Yeah.
Got it.
So it's kind of, again, a lot of this stems from
That's
the...
super lighthearted.
Yeah,
it's like beating a spouse. Like...
Eating out a spouse?
Eating a spouse. If you got her goop all over you.
I feel like we're grasping at straws here for just trying to... Let's give some brevity here.
Yes.
Eating out a spouse. Yeah, that's funny.
Eating the spouse, yes. Cannibalism. Cannibal corpse. So, do we have any ideas on what some of the lies are, folks?
I called bullshit where I saw fit, so I'm going to go ahead and throw my hat in.
Okay.
I don't believe it was a third that were sadistic. I think it might have just been one or two per people.
They did say that there was one that was particularly aggressive, but that number is specific. Yes, it is. They were saying that several of them did show that sort of aggressive and violent, sadistic tendency.
Yeah.
The lies, if we're tapping, I part of the thing I realized looking forward as well is we're less inclined to belabor the point on some of the lies if we're not calling them out. Yeah. You can say whether or not this is cheap. So I'm just going to let this run with this.
I feel like we should have that ability
yes,
to declare if a certain lie is...
just say bad
cheap.
Lie.
Like you said, my Everest one was brilliant because that's my series arc, is that I started as this like minor character that didn't really have good things, and my Google Doc didn't believe in me.
Season
and I didn't
1
believe in
redemption
me.
arc.
But I became brilliant because I asked you a question, but I lied to you.
He's Rocky at top of the steps now.
Yeah, we're still... I think John is the paradigm for cheap lie. Dad pop.
I'm brilliant, so let's see what you got.
So here's my lies. Physical and psychological torture, they were actually told they were not allowed to physically harm the indivials who were there.
That's not cheap.
So when they brought them in, they said you cannot physically assault them.
No, you told
So
that.
anything...
You did say they weren't... had to attempt to not harm them.
Correct. But they specifically expressed you are not allowed to touch them. So they told them no. So the prisoner who was beaten on the knee with a baton did not happen.
Oh,
so those are a couple of the lies. Another one is, and this is the cheap one, by the way. And I'm glad that none of you called this. I don't know if this is like tacit racism is going to be one of my things for lies.
Oh, it
excluded African Americans. It did not exclude African Americans.
No, I just thought like this, like 70s, like I pulled the wool over my eyes.
Racism is reasonable in the 70s.
It's a little later than I would expect for that inherent racism, but you know what?
Not shocking.
Yeah, it's believable. I wouldn't call it cheap.
It's ensconced with they wanted people without criminal backgrounds, without psychological impairments or medical problems, so it sounds like it's standard on the list. Mm-hmm. Absolutely not. Not intended to exclude.
Well, that's at least a positive note.
So the exact phrase was they are not to harm the prisoners physically, and I changed it to attempt to avoid harming them. And then added in the beating.
Oh, and I even made a joke about that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're the asshole.
I made a joke and I didn't say, I don't know, because that does sound like university speech.
I also utilized later on the individuals saying that Zimbardo was instructing people, like they need to psychologically do all these things, as that was the encouragement that led the physical abuse to be perpetrated on the one particular inmate. So I coded it with this veneer of being, supported by the facts. And that is essentially what I've got. Those are the ones. Those are the lies.
Well, I definitely need to take a shower and then probably...
They'll delouse you afterwards, so just be careful.
Oh, goodness.
And then they'll make you sit in a dress with no underwear.
I mean, I'm okay with that. I do that every Saturday anyway, so...
If only the Haynes Herway were sponsoring us for this episode, then we would have been able
this
to...
episode?
Well, I mean, that is something for me to know and no one else to.
Oh!
Well, I mean, if I was a Stanford prison guard and you were a prisoner and I said, tell me who the sponsor for this episode is...
And for those of you who do not want to get stuck like these good folks from the Stanford prison experiment and, chafe while sleeping on concrete, this show has been sponsored by Casper Mattresses. It is the wonderful way to avoid being, psychologically demeaned and beaten into submission by college students masquerading as prison guards.
You know that they ship it to you in a box, and you just take it out of the box, and it unfolds, and then it inflates to what it's going to be for the rest of your life.
And it's, covered in shame. And it contains, a small Russian bride who I just ordered from Instagram. No less than 3 weeks ago.
She hasn't shown up yet.
She hasn't yet. I think
but you got the bed ready.
I do. It unfolded from the box, and Gwyneth Paltrow was also in it. It's unfortunate. But, it comes to you in that small, how did they do that package? And it says that it is just like being cradled by John's mother in a state of post-coital bliss. And
she does love you so.
It is like having your balls fondled by a small midget named Henry whilst you're laying in... Dabowski. Whilst laying in Central Park feeding the pigeons out of your small brown bag. Casper, sleep better so that your dreams don't haunt you into your waking life. And that's going to be it for us here at the Disinformed podcast, ladies and germaphobes. So. We are getting slap happy sappy, and as of right now... I have a feeling that we need to go delouse Michael.
I think that's going to be 4 edits deep, which is probably the most edits we're ever going to have.
Yes. It balls deep, is fact.
Is that... Michael, you're the one that edits these episodes.
I could just feel...
4 edits at the end of this episode that you guys are never going to hear because it went too far, even for Shane.
Yes, hashtag too far for Shane is a new thing.
I think trending. I might keep them off to the side and be like, hey, if you do a $1,000 Patreon, per month subscription, we might send it to you once and be like,
it's not worth it.
If you send me a compliment, I'll beat it out of Michael's computer and send it to you.
Well, I was trying to get some money eventually in the future, but okay, if it's compliment, all right, I guess.
But anyway,
I can just feel my future self
I learned that
me.
Everything's trash and we should just set it all on fire, and Stanford blows.
Yes.
Michael, did you learn anything?
I learned that I'm glad I didn't go to Stanford. Not that they would have accepted me anyway, but
I mean, let's not break your arm jerking yourself off here, Mr. College Degree.
you only mentioned one. I have two, as useful as they are.
We have devolved into a state where I don't have any further comebacks. Don't call it a comeback. I've been here for years. We had a rough landing. If only it could have been, caught by the loving embrace of a Casper mattress, then we would have hit a little softer.
Well, on behalf of Casper Mattresses, I'm signing out.
So, while you're all
Footsteps go away.
While you're all biting the pillow top tonight, we hope that you think about the Stanford prison experiment and us enjoying it with all of our fun and frivolity. Please dive in. Give us a like and a follow if you are picking this up on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, wherever you are snatching this wonderful little audio for all the places that we have. And if you are looking to track us down on the social networks, we have them. They're here. Mm-hmm. You can find us. We are at Disinformed Podcast on Instagram. We are at Disinformed Podcast on Twitter. And then Facebook.com/Disinformed Podcast. So dive in, check us out. We're going to try to keep that entertaining, fun, and updated for all of you. We appreciate you being here for the Disinformed Podcast. I'm Shane.
I'm John.
And I'm Michael.
Now get the fuck back in your cell. Thanks for coming, folks. Don't worry. We'll clean it up.
No, you will.